Okay, good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the. I guess nominally this is the state of the college, and I one of the things I hope to do over the next year or two is actually figure out a better name for what this actually is. Um, I look at this as an opportunity to both celebrate some of the things that are going on in the college, as well as to update you all on a few activities that are going on. And I am going to change. My plan is to change the format a little bit over what's been done in the past. Um, I tend to find that these have been like these big unidirectional flows, and okay, it's still going to be part of that. But one of the things I really would like to do is to um, instead of just having a litany of a whole bunch of stuff, I'm going to take the second half of this and actually use it as a sort of a deep dive onto one topic. And the topic that I'm going to focus on this year is going to be on enrollment management and the so-called enrollment cliff. And this is something that I think we will I think this is a topic that is particularly poignant at this moment. It's something that I think faculty, some faculty know of it, others do not, but in the administration, it's something that we've really been focused on for the last couple of years. So these are the various topics I'll go through, but really I want to try to get to the second half of thinking a little bit about enrollment management and this so-called enrollment cliff, and then hopefully have enough time at the end for some questions about this. So I think most of you know we've had a fairly stable leadership team over the last year with the onboarding, and I did it again. I was going to update this with Beth's picture, and I've made this mistake twice. And so there is one person missing from this, which is Beth Schwartz, which is sitting right there, and I have forgotten to put Beth's picture on again. So this is the leadership team, sans one person. But we are going to have a change in our leadership team this year with the person that actually just literally walked in a moment ago. Mingkuo Lee will be stepping, as he sneaks in, is stepping down as chair of the Department of Geosciences this August. He has done a truly remarkable job. He's led the department for the last 6 years through a series of pretty substantial growth in the department, oversaw the implementation of the new Earth System Sciences PhD program in geosciences, coordinated the geosciences space, the design of the geosciences space in STEM Ag. And I think his proudest thing is that he's a very proud grandparent and will be spending some time with his grandkids. He's not leaving us, he's not retiring, he's just stepping down. But I want to publicly thank Mingkuo for his leadership of geosciences and all the work that he's done with that department over the last several years. So transitioning to our different units and talking a little bit about some of the good work going on in each of our academic departments. Let me start by blaming the department chairs for everything you're about to see. What? Hey, I will give you all credit and blame equally. So in terms of so going through each of the departments, obviously the departments this year have an enormous amount to be really proud of. All of the departments have truly been excelling in research, in teaching, in the outreach and the service that they do. We don't know what the final numbers for this academic year are going to look like, but I think it's pretty clear looking at the kind of the trends that our research metrics are going to be up from last year. And last year we were close to 25 million. I think we were just a hair under 25 million. We will probably blow, so I think we're in a pretty happy place. Each of the departments has great things going on in terms of biological sciences. This is just some examples of some of the outstanding activities from the faculty, including awards for folks like John Armbruster, Kate Buckley, Sissy Ballin, for graduate students, for undergraduates, Min Chong, Matt Curley, there's a whole wide group of folks. Folks are doing exceedingly well. This picture is disturbing. Thank you, Paul, for, I don't know, there's stuff that just squishes in the middle of this. I'm a physicist, so that's about my technical description of what is shown here. But there is a broad range of research within biological sciences going on, everything from single molecule work all the way up to study of ecosystems. And this is sort of captured in the images here. New extramural funding by a broad range of faculty, and in particular, a new career award for Adriana Villa Flores, which is a great accomplishment. And I think overall in the college, as you'll go through our different departments, you'll see that this has been a good year for us in terms of the NSF Career Awards. We also want to welcome 2 new faculty in biological sciences that joined in January, Rodney Tollerson and Michelle Gibbs. In terms of chemistry and biochemistry, they again continue to be a major contributor to the research activity, the research and teaching activities of the college. Over the last several years, they too have been expanding their both their research portfolio and new faculty that they've hired. So represented here are 4 recent faculties: Rahul Banerjee, Paul Ono from 2 years ago, Katie Rush, who was hired in this past academic year, and Maddie Soden, who will be joining us in fall of 2024. Their research portfolio has also expanded over the last several years. And they are, the department also hit its 70th anniversary in this past year. Their graduates are going pretty much everywhere. And in a sad moment from this past year, we had a PhD student that passed away at the end of 2023 and was awarded a posthumous PhD in December, and there's been a new memorial award for international graduate students established in the department in this past April. Turning to geosciences, again, great progress being made across the department. Chandana Mitra was elected as a fellow of the American Association of Geographers. Quite a number of their faculty have received new research grants from the NSF to USDA to Department of Energy. Bill Hames received a grant from ACS-PRF for studying carbon capture. And so this represents, again, pretty stunning advances in the kinds of things that we're doing across geosciences, including some updates in how the program is defined, establishing a new joint MS PhD program with the Federal University of Viscoa, and they've now also set up a new certificate program, new certificate programs with Savannah State University, which is an HBCU over in Savannah, Georgia. I think math and stats right now is in a pretty amazing place. I'll both brag and complain at the same time. I don't know how many math interviews I did, math faculty interviews I did this year. I believe the count was somewhere around 10,000. It just literally, there was a period where every day it was, all right, which new math faculty, who are you, which job are you applying for? And it was kind of ridiculous. Thanks, Ash, for a truly enjoyable month or two. But for the current faculty, they are truly making some great strides. As you can see, a number of their faculty have now received NSF grants, new Simon Foundations awards, new DoD contracts. We had an expansion of the Logan Chair, so there are now 2 faculty members that are going to be, have been designated as Logan Chairs, Dr. Kao and Dr. Shen as Logan Chairs in the Department of Mathematics. I guess one thing that came out after these slides were made was the fact that Hal Schenk is now also a fellow of the American Association for the Advancement of Sciences, which that's so new it didn't make the slides. We've gotten several new endowments for the department, and one really important thing that's been going on, I think, in math and stats over the last couple of years has been the department has really raised its visibility tremendously through a number of conferences, and in particular funded conferences. So these are just 3 examples, one just recently held and then 2 that are upcoming, of math and stats conferences that are being hosted by the department that are regional and national conferences, really raising the presence not only of math and stats but also of Auburn and COSAM. Our other 2 career award winners this year were in the physics department, Wenkan Jin and Hong Zhao. Wenkan in the area of condensed matter physics and Hong Zhao in the area of space plasma physics. Physics also welcomed a new faculty member in biophysics, Modadine Hashimi, who is working on experimental biophysics. And I guess Alan is bragging here that, appropriately, I guess, that physics, even though I should say, I don't see Paul, that's why Paul's in another meeting, even though DBS is getting close, and they're chasing biology, they're chasing physics really hard. Physics did break $8 million this year, and so that's actually a pretty, that's pretty stunning. With a broad range of both national and international research, based on plasma experiments in Germany, on the ISS, heavy ionic research in Germany, and work on both the James Webb and Hubble Space Telescopes. And so a pretty impressive array of research. The department's initiating some new classes, particularly this really interesting class in physics for aviators, connecting with the School of Aviation. Lots of graduate student initiatives to represent the diversity of the students in the physics department. And some really fun events, Sips and Stars, which I thought was, there was a nice kickoff of an event. We now do it was a football physics tailgate that I thought also went quite well. And one other that I do want to highlight is the Great American Eclipse that was organized through part of the physics department with a bunch of faculty, and I just realized I got this note from Mark Adrian, and I ended up leaving off Mark Adrian's name on this, but Mark Adrian was one of the key organizers of this, and special thanks to Mark for putting off together. So that gives you kind of a broad sense of some of the things that are going on in the departments. I want to turn to some of the things in the administrative offices and then roll that into this larger question topic that I want to focus on for the second half of this. First of all, in terms of COSAM's student support, this is something that we take great pride in, trying to find ways that we can support all of the students that are not only COSAM majors, but all of the students that pass through the College of Science and Math to take courses. And this just gives you a brief snapshot of some of the services that we provide. Our students, in our surveys of our students, they are pretty satisfied with the education that you all are providing to them. And that's really the important thing. This is our main job, is to support our students. And when we get our reports back that our students are pleased with the things that we do, that's quite positive. Our pre-health programs can remain strong, and this is looking at the data from the PPAC group. This is the pre-professional. We'll get that right. Advisory. I missed it. Pre-professional. Go ahead. Thank you. All right. And these are the students going to med school. That's what you need. And we do looking at that subset of students. We actually place those students pretty well. A real big shout out goes to our new career services advisor. For those of you that do not know, about a year and a half ago or so, COSAM hired in addition to supporting student services, which is advising and the things like that, we also brought on board Megan Bryant as a career services advisor, and who is focused specifically on internships, career placement, job placement for COSAM students. This is something that we did not have up until about a year and a half ago. And this has gone over, I think, both from the point of view of the students as well as for those of us in the college administration, amazingly well. We've had, I don't know, you can just see the numbers here, over 80 employers, 73 graduate and professional schools have shown up for our various fairs. We've had 9 different events with close to 900 students that have participated in these job fairs. And this is something I think that we really needed as a college. And not only is, this is also providing a way to connect to some of our alumni as well, who are really interested in providing opportunities for our students. So this is something I think that's going to be a really important part of the types of services we provide to students over the next few years. Excuse me. And of course, we're looking here at assessment of some of the things that we do. We brought on board Beth Schwartz as our new assistant dean, who started in January to oversee our biomedical sciences program. Beth is currently working with a swath of faculty and advisors across the college as we are working through a process to kind of reevaluate and reimagine the impact of our biomedical sciences program and how we can transform that as we go into the next year. I think the plan is that as we get close to the end of this calendar year, we're hoping to complete that review process and begin rolling out what a updated version of essentially a 2020s to 2030s biomedical sciences program is going to look like. And another program that I think that is something where it's been a gem of the college for nearly 20 years, and most of us, I didn't even know about this, is the rural medicine program. The rural medicine program is a way that it started with Larry Witt, who I think many of you knew, um, and it is a pre-medical school year. Essentially adds on a year of medical school, but it takes students that are making a commitment to serve rural Alabama and gives them a year of training and extra education here at Auburn. We have a cohort of, where'd Maggie go? There you go, like 8 to 10, 8-ish per year? 8 to 12 students per year that participate in this program. We had the closing ceremony for it last night. It's been going on for 20 years, and the numbers are something like 50% of the folks that have gone through this program actually stay and serve rural Alabama, which is, again, before becoming dean, I didn't even realize that this was a thing that we did. So I really, it's a program that's really impressed me over my last year and a half of doing this. Research is obviously something that is really important to us as a college. As I said, last year, you can see the trend lines. Y'all are rocking, and that's really all I got to say. This is not me. This is all of you engaging in these kinds of activities, and it looked like 2020 and 21, 22 were kind of coming out of that COVID malaise, whatever you want to call it, but came roaring back in 23, and we'll be really interested to see what the 24 numbers look like for us. One of the big things that we're also working on in the research office is not only looking at research from its scholarly point of view, but also looking at research in what is the societal impact that we're making. And this is something that Mark and his team have really started thinking a lot about. How do we make the translation of work from the laboratory and having it moving towards having a societal impact as well? One of the big things that we worked on this year was the development of new centers and institutes. I'm deeply grateful to Mark for really leading this effort. It was a team effort within the college's administration, but Mark was the public face of it. So this is kind of Mark's, Mark and my baby, but Mark did all the hard work. Yeah, Mark did all the hard work. These are the logos. Great job, plasma physicists. I'm just, hey, I'm saying that as a card-carrying plasma physicist. But you can see these represent the. I'm sorry, I had to do that. We're physicists. We're not that creative. It's just. But you can see some of the wonderful ideas that have been proposed. Everything from modeling of materials, data science, a biodiversity institute, an informal STEM center, carbon capture, methane activation, plasma science. This was a beautiful process. There were, Mark, 23, got it flipped. There were 23 original proposals that were submitted in this process. When Mark and I first thought about it, I told him, we'll get 5, maybe 6. 23, that was amazing. It was hard to down select to this group. For those that are interested, this is just the first cycle of this. We're envisioning a new cycle that will begin in about a year and a half to 2 years after we are working with this group to get them to the point where they are submitting extramural proposals. But stay tuned. I think this is something that we've really become quite excited about. Okay, in terms of some of the things that we've been doing in the outreach arena, as you know, the COSAM outreach is something that is, again, another one of those really important parts of the mission of COSAM. The last year, we've had over 10,000 individuals impacted by the broad range of our programs over the last year. Auburn is the headquarters for both the Science Olympiad and the Science Engineering Fairs. And Mary Lou was, I had real pleasure of being at the ceremony when Mary Lou Ewald, our Director of Outreach, received the inaugural Roy Cook Endowed Engagement Award. This was the first award given by the Outreach Office for their work. And then something that I and several other people in this room had a wonderful time at was during Black History Month. There was a series of science cafes. Myself and Ash and Rodney all participated in that, and those in partnership with with Dr. Mulligan's office and the OIED office. And this was a really quite a fun activity that we did. And this is a list representing the set of speakers that participated in that this year. The other aspect of our research activity is with the Southeastern Center for Robotics Education, SCORE. This is also based here in COSAM. They have been building a really large and growing partnership with Hyundai. And in fact, one of the things to highlight here is they got almost $250,000 from Hyundai to support some of their robotics initiatives in the past year, have a broad range of robotics tournaments, and they bring Spot. Again, if you don't know, Spot's a little robot dog. Hyundai bought Boston Dynamics, a company that makes all the little dancing robot things. So yeah, they bring along Spot whenever they do this. And you want to see a couple hundred kids get super, super excited, bring a robot dog someplace, and that's really quite cool. And we also hosted the other VEX Robotics programs as well. Okay. In terms of Dr. Mulligan's office, Office of Inclusion, Equity, and Diversity, although we're thinking about names and other things. Continuing, of course, our active participation in the Summer Bridge program. Something that was, I think, a great new opportunity that we started this year was the so-called Seal the Deal event. This was a program that for all the admitted COSAM students to come in. There were 21 students and families. I guess you could say the return rate on that was good because 14 of them actually paid their deposits while they were there. Was it, or shortly thereafter? Within a week. I think it was like after. Yeah. So I would call that a pretty good return rate on that. So, and I have not been invited apparently to the STEM Glide Belize activity. You haven't either? Okay. Oh, okay. Thank you. So apparently there's an activity in Belize this summer, and we don't get invited to that. But all right, that's fine. That's okay. Yeah. And then Dave Crisostomo from chemistry, Crisostomo, thank you, is the fellow for that office. They've also gotten partnership with the Succeed program and helped establish a new international student organization, and of course the aforementioned partnerships with COSAM Outreach on the science cafes. A big thing also is working with, the office does much more than just working with students. The office is pretty heavily engaged with, I call it faculty and staff affairs in the college, and one of the things that came out of that was documentation on conflict mitigation between graduate students and PIs. Now, in terms of just kind of expanding beyond that, I think we're all aware of the fact that in March, the governor signed Bill SB 129. This is the bill that bans state funding of DEI programs, but it has specific protections and carve-outs in the bill for educational activities and federally funded and mandated programs. I refer back to the statement from from the president and the provost. We remain committed to these exceptional student experiences while continuing to support academic freedom and freedom of expression. As always, Auburn will act consistently with applicable state and federal laws. In terms of how we are responding to this, and we are looking at all of our programs. We're trying to understand how this is going to impact our staff, our faculty, our students, the various programs that we have. Dr. Mulligan and I are in constant communication about this. I do want to hearken back to the second bullet point about educational activities and federally funded activities. Okay, these, to the best of our knowledge, the way the bill's written, there are carve-outs for that. Those are specifically excluded from SB 129. And as we are trying to understand and manage our way and are frankly waiting for some guidance from the institution writ large, we in the college are trying to be as thoughtful and deliberative about this as possible. We are, as part of a public institution, we are subject to the laws of the state, and we will comply with the laws of the state, but we will do so in a way that also ensures that the kinds of activities and the mission of the college is not going to be impacted will have minimal impact by this. And so, again, I'm happy to take questions that folks have as we go through. STEM Ag is a really big and happy thing for the college. You should be seeing parts of STEM Ag go up around if you're driving along Sanford. So if you drive along Sanford, where the big sign is covering things up, if you're driving from the east going west, you would pass Building B, then Building A, and Building C is kind of going jutted into going in, towards the south. That's the cartoon. These are the renderings, but honestly, this is what it actually looks like. That's as of a month ago, and since I had about a minute this afternoon, that's what it looks like as of this afternoon from the webcam. The basement floors are all done. So for our departments that are moving in there, you can't touch the basement floors anymore. No changes in the basement. The first floor is, as you can see, the first floor is coming out of the ground. The poles coming up connect up to the second floor. Real thanks to our advancement team for working in really in close concert with the College of Ag. We're starting to make progress on our move-in, on our fundraising. Yeah, well, we've still got a ways to go, but we got lots of prospects. Will and I are now spending a lot of time. Will Holly, Will Holly, who's here, part of our new director of advancement, and I are now spending a lot of time, a lot of quality time together as we are traveling around the country with hat in hand, because we've got, money to raise. But this, to the whole advancement team, this year has really been stunning. They've already put together, this is what Will sent me a couple of days ago. We're already at 122% of our goal, with just over half the year So that's actually pretty stunning. We've raised in this year 2.5 million of the 3.5 million for STEM Ag. Lots of estate gifts. We've got a new professorship that is, this is going to be endowed, right? It's endowed, a new endowed professorship for physics. Various endowments for various places throughout the college, and a growing partnership with Hyundai, and so this is all like really great stuff. Okay, so that's like the rah. Here's all the stuff going on in the college. That's my large information flow. It has been a privilege and an honor to serve this college for the last year, and it's really cool. When I put these sorts of things together, I get highlights from the chairs, the unit leaders, and they say, "Here's all the cool stuff that's going on in the college," and that's pretty amazing. And I could keep going. There's more. I limited the departments to 2 slides this year each, right, in order to keep things compact, because I wanted to do something a little bit different. And I don't know, I'm going to put on my science hat here, and I'm going to say, well, I want to take a deep dive onto a particular topic, one that I think is of relevance to all of us. And my hope is that as I continue to evolve this kind of event, to kind of pick a topic a year and take some time to discuss that topic. And so what I want to talk about is this thing called the enrollment cliff. So first of all, how many of you have actually heard that term, either the demographic cliff or enrollment cliff? Okay, so some of you, but not everyone, okay? So what does that actually mean? So these are news stories that I just clipped from my news feed and from Apple News over the last 3 months. And I just grabbed stuff, the first set of stuff that just popped up, okay? Colleges turn to older students to STEM enrollment crisis. The cliffs of higher ed, who's going over and why? The South Carolina governor calls for study considering consolidating colleges ahead of the enrollment cliff. Will the enrollment cliff help or hurt your career? I mean, this is a thing. Okay. If you have not heard, this is a university in Birmingham, Alabama. Birmingham Southern has just under 2,000 students. It is closing on May 31st of this year. Their enrollment hit a point where it was no longer sustainable to keep their institution open. And about 3 or 4 weeks ago, they announced that they were closing permanently. The university is about it actually was founded only about 5 years after Auburn. So it's 150 something year institution that is closing. And this was, again, just from Apple News, just a series of news stories about the closure of Birmingham Southern. Okay. So I had given some information about the enrollment cliff back in the fall to the college's leadership council. And this is from a report done by one of the branches of the college. It's actually the western branch of the College Board. There's a website there on the bottom if you're really interested in seeing it. So they track university closures. And at that point, you can see there's a bar there going from 0 to 9, and see there's closures around this. So I went back to the website. I'm going to flip this a couple of times for the spring. And actually, if you look carefully, you'll see it's actually growing. It's changing. The bar went from 9 to 10 in a particular state, and you'll see the states got changed colors. There are more closures that are occurring across the country. If you also look really carefully, it's concentrated in a certain part of the country. It's concentrated quite heavily in the Northeast and Midwest. Okay, So the question is, why is this happening, and where is this coming from? And how does, frankly, how does it impact us at Auburn? So this discussion, this national discussion, got kicked off by a report from the Western Interstate Commission. This is it's one of the regional commissions, just like we're part of SAC-COC and other things, called Knocking at the College Door. And what they did, this was a report that it came out in 2020, so it was about right here. And they were looking at the demographics of the United States and looking at the populations of high school graduates. And so this is without the zero suppressed. This is with the zero. So you're looking here at a trend, and you're going, oh, okay, well, that doesn't, okay, there's an up and a down. Okay, so what I did is I went into the database, because I'm a nerd. I went into the data, I grabbed the actual data to kind of give you a little bit more of a sense of what that actually looks like. So I'm going to start here. This is that national data, but now looking at 3 million, this is the projection of high school graduates between 2008 and 2037. The report came out in 2020, so everything before 2020 was actual numbers. And then everything is just based on census data. 2025, so this upcoming year, is projected to be the maximum number of high school students that this country will have. And then it begins falling for the next 15 years. This is just math and simple demographic data looking at the population from the US Census. Okay? Now, if you go back here to this plot, they have some error bars around it because that also requires that you know a little bit about the conversion rate about the graduation rate. So it's not absolute, there is a little bit of noise on that, but the trend is still there. It is projected by around 2035, we're going to be looking at a high school population, the equivalent of what we had in 2012. In 2012. That is from the peak going down by something like 500,000 students. Then you say, well, okay, it's regional. And that's true, it is regional. This is why the Northeast has been impacted so badly. This is the projected population of the Northeast part of the United States over the same time period. And that is a straight line down. This is why the Northeast appears to be the first part of the country that was first impacted. And if you go back here, this is why you're seeing the Northeast being so largely impacted by those college closures, because they're losing population. This is the South. We're here. But still, we're in a better place, but there is still going to be a fall off. So, well, that's the South. We're in Alabama. That's the Alabama data. We are sitting right here at 24, 25. Okay? So regional and state trends are very, very important when you start looking at this data. Okay? Now, I did actually adjust it. I mean, because again, now I'm suppressing the zero, right, so that you can actually see the shape of the curve. Man, oh God, it feels like I should have like plasma data here because I feel like I'm giving a technical talk. I had way too much fun actually playing with data tables and trying to do this. Okay. So that's the landscape, however, in which we are living for the next decade or two. What is our enrollment actually going to be like? All right. Now let's take a look. What's the good news? Well, this is Auburn's undergraduate enrollment. Now, I'm going to say that this is the bodies. This is not the FTEs that the upper administration likes to say. And this is just undergraduate enrollment. This is not total enrollment. Because our total enrollment is actually 32,000 something, if you include the graduate students. Okay. But this is our undergraduate enrollment over the last several years. This is why some of our departments are stressing. Now, actually, I would say all of our departments are stressing. That number keeps going up. And let me point this out. This is the enrollment data as of 2 days ago. So this is broken down into 3 categories. The blue one is the applications that we get. Okay, so this is the number that enrollment management loves to quote. We have 50,000 applicants. We have 50-something thousand. Okay, that's to the Common App. That's completed applications. You can hit a button, press 15 things, and say, here, these are the universities. Boom, you get 50,000 applications. Okay, well, out of that 50,000, we accept. We've been accepting 19, 24, and then 20, 25,000. Okay, so this is 22, 23, and 24. So this is 24 is the incoming class. The number that freaks us out in the administration is not this number or this number. It's that third column. Those are deposits. Those are kids that are putting down money to say, yeah, I would like to come to Auburn next year. That number went from 51 to 62 to 6,800. Okay? And then the last number, and I don't have the tracking data, although I'm sure Eric can get me the tracking data of the Camp War Eagle population. The Camp War Eagle population is even your most accurate count, because those are the folks that not only deposited, they also said they're coming to Auburn's orientation. So that green column are the kids that are actually planning on showing up here this fall. Last year, we ended up at 5,900 was our enrollment going into the academic year, began in 2024. Eric, do you know about where we were at this time last year? I think you mentioned it yesterday.
I don't know. Our yields.
The yields?
I don't got the camp number. Oh, Camp War Eagle? Nah, but I think you're pretty accurate on what we were at in the fall, how many students.
Yeah. So I think I know this number is definitely up from where, and a measure of that is our poor folks in student services. They're now going to 12 Camp War Eagle sessions, up from how many last year? 10. Yeah, so they're adding more Camp War Eagle sessions. So this is translating into bigger enrollment for us. So here's the problem that I pose to us in the college. We're seeing that. But our data is telling us this. Okay? All right, so I'm stepping down as dean. One of you is going to have to do the job. Where do you add more faculty? Or do you add more faculty? Or, because hiring a faculty member is a 30-year job. Okay? So, I'm not stepping down as dean. This is my problem, okay? But seriously, how do we face this enrollment mix, in-state, out-of-state? We want to meet our mission as a land grant. We want to make sure our students actually reflect our population. We want to train those students to meet the career and professional and economic needs of the state. But we've got to optimize our hiring somehow to accommodate a near-term increase, but a long-term decrease. And how do we optimize our infrastructure to support our faculty, our staff, our personnel? How how do we optimize all of those different factors, okay? I'm not saying I have an answer to that. I'm just posing those as questions. And so I remember as a young faculty member asking, what the hell does the dean and the chairs, what are they thinking about? Okay, well, this is part of what's, I wouldn't say keeping us up at night, but this is the sort of thing that we actually spend time thinking about. And in our conversations as we're planning out things for the college, these are the kinds of yin and yang, pulls and pushes that we're kind of dealing with. And, you know, so when you see your chairs sitting there like, oh my God, what do I have to do? Yeah, they're stressing out over a bunch of stuff like this. This is kind of what I want to do with this. I'm not offering any answers because I got none. This is, you know, we're going to figure this out together. But what I want to be able to do with these events is to take an activity, so take something like this, do a dive, give you a sense of like, yeah, administrators actually do a thing, yeah, which surprised the heck out of me that I have to do work. Anyway, thank you all. On a happy, depressing note, thank you all. I really do appreciate it, and I'd love to take some questions if you all have them. So, cool, I'm done. Dr. Landers.
Can you just talk a little bit about the disproportionate pressure on our college
Yeah, that's a good.
relative to who we teach?
Yeah, that's a great point. So, you know, so something something that we are struggling with. So you see the university enrollment going up. COSAM teaches. So the currency of the university, of how your teaching goes, is measured in student credit hours. You basically multiply the number of students that you have times the number of credit hours that they're taking. CLA, College of Liberal Arts, teaches the largest number of student credit hours. We're number 2. I think they are like right at like 280, 270, 280,000 student credit hours. We teach 220 something thousand student credit hours. However, the problem is that we teach 70% of our student credit hours to students that are not COSAM students. Engineering teaches the 4th highest number of student credit hours, but they teach 99.2% of their student credit hours are taught to engineering students. That has huge budget implications, because when we teach a student from another college, we only get 65 cents on the dollar. When you teach a student from your own college, you get the full dollar. So even though engineering teaches fewer student credit hours, they recover nearly 100% of the revenue. We teach, most of the students that we teach, we only recover 65 cents on the dollar. And even College of Liberal Arts teaches more CLA students, because they teach about 58% of the student credit hours to their own students. We only teach 30% of our student credit hours to our own students. That's a great question. Thank you for I didn't even tell him to seed me that question, but I happen to know all this data. But that is a fundamental source, and that mix of 65-35, we don't have any control over. That is set by the budget model. So, yay us.
But the follow-up is you have had discussions with the administration about resource support because of that disproportionate
Yeah.
pressure that we face.
Yes, we have, and we are getting. Yes, we have had that discussion. The provost actually is. We had our budget meeting today. We had a budget meeting this morning, and you know, there is, in the last couple of conversations that the provost has had with the deans writ large. The two colleges that she calls out in particular that need more, I would say, help in its teaching space are CLA and COSAM, because we need more capacity in both of those. So, Luke, yeah.
Yeah, I wanted maybe to offer a physics platform to discuss the enrollment issue.
Mhm.
So imagine every university is a bubble, and the size of the bubble is the number of students.
Mhm.
If we're silk bubbles on the film, the larger bubbles subsume the smaller ones, and which is what's happening in Birmingham Southern, for instance. So would it be possible to do like a two-dimensional model instead of a one-dimensional model like you had? And even when the total number of students, like the total
I know where you're going. Yeah.
is going down, it's possible that the larger bubbles would continue to get bigger in a counterintuitive way because we're subsuming the smaller ones. And so if that were the actual outcome of the thought experiment, maybe we could plan to hire more tenure track faculty, assuming that we're going to continue, steady or
No.
growing, even if everyone else goes down.
That's actually a fair point, and it's one actually that at last year's, and I'm sure at this year's SEC Dean's meeting is coming up. That's coming up in a month or so. We're beginning to have exactly a version of that conversation because, and you're right, the Birmingham Southern example is a really good one. We will probably get a few hundred of those students coming to Auburn. So will Alabama, so will USA, and so will others. In the Southeast, all of the SEC schools, as of last year when we met, all of our enrollments were going up. The big schools, the big flagship state schools in each of those states were in fact getting bigger, but at the cost of forcing the smaller schools in those states to basically close. Well, they were closing, and therefore the big schools are absorbing their students. The problem, and so it is, that's part of the issue. That's the other tension that's there. The other part of it, I think all of us in the Dean's group would say, ultimately, this is not a sustainable solution because there's a reason why students chose to go to those kinds of institutions. And, we actually don't think it's the healthiest thing for all the big schools simply to get bigger. But your point is a valid one, and we don't know how that's going to play out. But you are correct that is the other axis in it, which is the fact that it is true. All the big schools in the South are, in fact, their enrollments are all getting bigger.
So we could project 30 years in the future and imagine we're sitting here and say, wow, we hired a bunch of temporary employees and now our enrollment actually went up. So we have contingent employees, whatever you want to call it.
Right.
Because there's flexibility in, for instance, hiring non-tenure track or adjunct or so on to get some of the things done in the college. So then you wonder, will we sit here with larger enrollment and no tenure track faculty or whatever?
Yeah. No, like I said, it's a fair point because it's one that I can tell you that every chair is coming to me and going, the solution is not entirely just simply adding temporary faculty. I mean, it is actually about bringing in additional tenure track faculty. But again, you're also right, is that it's this complex. I would argue it's probably more than a 2D problem. It's probably it's a complex problem. But I think one of the things I wanted to do here is to just lay out the scope of and the complexity of these kinds of issues because it could potentially be a 30-year challenge that we're facing. So, yeah, Rodney, then Eric, and sorry, looking there, and then there's some over here. But Rodney, go.
When we're thinking about things like the Mission as the Land Grant, you had mentioned in-state students versus out-of-state students. do
Right.
you, well, there's kind of two parts to this, but do you see this increase in out-of-state versus in-state? And along those same lines, is the university thinking about potentially keeping with the mission, tweaking with acceptance, since it seems like the, I guess, matriculation rate is higher than expected, tweaking acceptance?
So the board, Auburn's board has sort of had pretty much mandated that they would like to see Auburn remain as close to a 55% out-of-state, 45% in-state as possible. Our competitors to the northwest have, their board has allowed them to a little bit more. They're now, I think, 50-50 or maybe a little bit less than 50-50 the other way. They've got more out-of-state students. But Auburn's board has kind of mandated that. You know, you can solve some of the financial pressure issues because each out-of-state student pays about 3 times what in-state. But be that as it may, I actually appreciate the idea that this institution should try to remain as, you know, representing an in-state institution. I think that's really good. So to answer the first part is no, we're still holding that line. And the second part was
And just thinking about, you know, since matriculation is higher,
Oh,
would
yeah.
potentially messing with acceptance?
yeah, that's a more complicated one because it then goes to the fact that now you've got to have enough resources, not only in terms of people teaching, but you also have to have things like, do you have enough housing to actually cover all of these students? So at some point, you are going to run into a resource issue. You can't keep growing ad nauseum.
Well, I was thinking the other way,
Oh, you mean, oh,
like, where, like, you can see potentially, I mean.
yeah, if your population starts to that's the other part. That's the other half of what I was saying, which is, do you run into a problem where you've now built up too much, and now you've got empty, you've got classrooms and buildings that are empty? Yeah, I'm glad I'm not the provost. Let's just put it that way. So, Eric, and then we'll keep an eye over here, and then JJ. Yeah.
Point of clarification.
Yep.
Look up on data on the phone.
Yeah.
So last year, registration for Camp War Eagle was 5,989.
At the end of the process.
Yes.
Okay, so we're still running below where we're not quite at the same point yet.
No, he's saying we were affected by the time it ended, that we were at the same number that you're at right now. You don't have a whole another month.
I would have to defer to Dr. Hahn to calculate.
Oh, wow, okay.
But no, last year, at the end of Camp War Eagle, when we ended before like 10th day classes.
Yeah,
It was 5,989.
okay, so that's still 400 more than it's in the database now. But we know that number, the number that I have as of Monday is a low number because you already gave me the number from yesterday and it was already up another like 100. Yeah, so yeah, we're getting ready to blow through that. JJ.
So I understand from the administrator's point of view, from his point of view, the undergraduate enrollment is the first order importance.
Mhm.
But if we think about in the future, then that will also impact graduate students. And we are running research, and one way I think about here, so for those closure of smaller university will not help a graduate program because they don't have graduate program. So we probably, it's a maybe a delayed problem, but we might actually facing a different challenge. How can we?
That's a fantastic question. I will do the physicist thing. I will take your question. I'll raise it by another question, which is equally important. There is a okay. Let me answer your first question. I don't know. That's a very good point, and it's one I think that probably really hasn't even been fully projected. Like what would that mean if you've got a a demographic fall, what does that mean about your graduate education, particularly if you combine that with, an era where we're talking about reducing immigration into the country and other things like that. I'll add one additional factor on top of that, and this is not a political statement about unions at all. I promise it's not. There is a push across the country towards unionization of graduate students and what have you. California is currently running the experiment. The result in California has been led to unintended consequences because the public universities have unionized. The budget for graduate students, which meant that their pay for graduate students went way up. The budget for graduate students in the state remained the same. So there is a crunch. And the result of that crunch is that the California universities accepted 60% fewer students in graduate school this past fall. And as a result, the graduate student workload went up after unionization because there were so few graduate students that the schools could afford to bring in that the workload for the TAs had to go up because there were fewer TAs to manage the load. So California is running the experiment for us right now. And I know this personally because I am friends with the GPO, with the Associate Dean for Graduate Studies at UC Irvine. We had lunch together about a month or two ago, and he was telling me he said, worst time to have become Associate Dean for Graduate Studies because he's trying to manage all of that. So now you add in that additional factor. And in fact, actually, so it's next week? No, 2 weeks from now. This came up to be such a big point at a meeting I was at. At the National Academies meeting that I'm on the Board of Physics and Astronomy. At the BPA meeting, we're actually having a discussion about this. Basically, there's another piece of this, which is while the private schools are really annoyed that their tuition and their graduate fees are going up, if you're a Princeton or you're a Harvard or you are Stanford, you do have a 10, 20, 30, $50 billion endowment that you can at least tap a little bit to cover some of that. If you're a public institution, like an Auburn, so the debate at the meeting was between the publics and privates. They were grumbling and like, I guess we could cover it. All of us in the public schools were going, oh, hell no, we can't cover these kinds of increases. So does this mean that all graduate education in its extreme shifts to private schools because they can afford, if they go unionize, they can afford to cover graduate tuition and graduate stipends? Does this kill graduate programs at public schools? And the feds are not putting any additional money in for graduate stipends. I have no idea, but again, I'm going to be at a meeting in DC where we're going to have a lovely discussion, a battle between the publics and privates over that question. So, fun time to be an administrator, everybody. Yeah, somebody wants this job because it's anyway. Kidding. Absolutely, just teasing. This is fun, actually. Yeah, Lori.
Is there any concern, just thinking about those smaller schools, as you said, or someone said that, certain people want to go to those schools. So I could imagine that those schools will probably be able to be more selective with more applicants because there's fewer of those bubbles. Our bubble would be bigger. Would that mean that we would become less selective? And what would that mean about the quality of students? If we're facing, an enrollment cliff, are we going to just take what we can get, or are we going to want to maintain the quality of the students that we have coming?
That's a great. I don't either because it's no. It's a very, very good. So if you didn't hear the question, it basically was if your population of applicants is going down, in order to maintain your enrollment levels, do you change basically the metrics of the students that you admit? Right, so it becomes, do you shrink, so a solution is, do you shrink your programs to accommodate for that so you can maintain the quality, which would mean the WVU. Well, okay, the WVU is a whole other case. But what WVU did, I don't know if you've heard, West Virginia University, they shut down most of their language programs, basically terminated their graduate math program, all in the spirit of budget cuts. So there is that solution where you basically go, we can't afford these sorts of things, so we're just going to wipe out whole programs. It's not just happening at West Virginia. It's West Virginia, University of Arizona, and there was one other big public school that are all facing some pretty serious budget cuts this year. I was reading it in the Chronicle of Higher Education. I can't remember what the third one is right now. But there were 3 large publics that are all, University of Nebraska, that's the other one. They're all facing major program cuts because their student populations, well, Arizona's a little bit weird, that's a little bit self-imposed. But Nebraska and WVU are because of enrollment cuts. So, I mean, these are the kinds of questions that we as an institution need to start, not just need, we are thinking about, because I do think that, me personally, I kind of agree with the original point of what you started with. There are a lot of students that make choices of the kinds of institutions that they want to go to as for their undergraduate education. A lot of students don't want to come to an Auburn. It's just too big. I didn't want to come to a place like Auburn as an undergraduate. Okay, that's perfectly fine. And we're basically saying we're taking away that choice from a lot of students. I don't know if that's the right thing to do, and I think that's why, as deans, is when we meet, we actually don't think it is very healthy as an educational enterprise for us to be losing those small schools. It's not good for the students and the opportunities that for certain types of students, they will thrive in that environment. They would not thrive here. And so, yeah, these are complex issues. So, it's 4:42. I went a little bit longer than I had intended. But I hope that this, I love the questions. I like the debate and the discussion that we're having. I hope this kind of modified format seems something a little bit more interesting than just the blast of information. If it seemed to go over well, just send me a note if you thought this was helpful. Heck, I'll even make the departments give me one slide and refocus more on a discussion part. But I'm happy to hang out here for a few more minutes if you all have questions. Thank you all for coming. I hope you found this at least, I don't know if you found it entertaining, but at least I hope you found it at least educational and give you a sense of some of the things that we're thinking about. And if you have topics you want me to talk about next year, yeah, drop me a line. We're gonna try to do that. As long as it's not budget. I am not talking to you all about budget. Okay, that's the one topic that is off the table, budget. So, all right, thanks everybody.